But if you persevere, and a lot of you know this, if you persevere in doing things, not just history, but anything, if you persevere, luck will come to you quicker than it will for somebody who gives up. Right? Give me that thing. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get you where you're supposed to be.
One more. The other way. One more. Right
There
there.
you go.
Okay. I kept one. Somebody probably heard sabotage. What I really wanted to find was a deed where I could trace it all the way down. Because at the time when Jack Wilson showed me the spot, it was owned by a lady named Virginia Henry, who is a great-great-granddaughter of Mr. Strum. Okay? Just keep going back. But I could never find one. I don't know what made me do it, but I was over at what I still call Tiny Town, you know where I'm talking about, where the deeds are. And I looked in Survey Book 1, and here, we just go over and I'll show you. It's right across the street, but they're closed today. But on page 11, I was just looking at the old surveys, and I ran into this. You remember, in those days, F's are S's. You know, when you receive land for your Revolutionary War service, you could give it to somebody else, you could just kind of assign it. It's called being somebody's assignee, which works a lot better than having to buy it. Surveyed for John Leeper, the man who killed Big Art. Assignee of Benjamin McClendon, assignee of so forth, assignee of Moses Stegall. Okay? The man whose wife and baby were killed in 1799. Then it gives on Deer Creek. That's why I titled my article, Murder on Deer Creek. And I live on a branch of Deer Creek, so I wanted to put that in there because I was trying to get my axe. Carl Rizzi lives on Deer Creek just like, you know. Well, here it gives the dimensions. John Russell and John Pearson, chain carriers, John Leeper, marker, surveyed October 14th, 1807 by John Gordon, surveyor, Hopkins County. The ancestor of the Gordons that are around now. So it's getting neat. But this helped me verify the oral history that people had told me. Because this is primary evidence. Logic, documentation. Then you bring your oral history in with
You ready?
it. Skip ahead about 10. No, I'm kidding about that. Okay. Not yet. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. This was in a collection of maps put out by Dr. Thomas Clark, Historic Maps of Kentucky, which is at the library. It used to be. I hope it still is. There's a number of maps in there. This is an 1812 map of Kentucky. Greenville. Can you read that? Hartshead. It's a community. That's where they stuck his head. You look down here at Eddy Grove, Eddyville, and you think, wonder what Eddy they named that after. Well, Eddyville was named for Eddy Creek. And in the creek there was a little swirling water, which in those days was called an eddy. And that's where Eddyville came from. That's why it's named that. Greenville was there. There's a ferry there at what I call Kincheloe Bluff, Lewisburg. Vienna is the old name for Calhoun, which is the oldest town around. Before that it was called, Christian Courthouse. That was the first name for Hopkinsville. Okay? But the reason I like it, because Harp's Head, 1812. Okay, go on, go on. 1839 map of Kentucky. Still there. Harp's Head. Crossroads. See, Dixon's not there. Madison is there. Belleville in Hopkins County. Kingston. You wonder where those places were, or maybe it was some pursuit, you could find them. Vienna, it's still called Vienna before they changed the name to Calhoun. Lewisburg no longer exists by that name. Hopkinsville is now Hopkinsville. Worthington is Island, Kentucky. Old maps are neat, but I want you to see the Harp's Head on the map. It was a crossroad. Okay. So when the Hart brothers came down, supposedly Moses Stigall owed them $1, they were going to collect it. He wasn't home. He was gone to a place called Robertson's Lick up in Henderson County to get some salt. Because in those days, you didn't go to Kroger and get your salt. You had to go to where they made salt and buy it, by the bag or barrel or however they did. He was gone overnight. His wife and child were left there. William Love, who was going to survey for Mr. Stigall, came and he was staying the night. And that's what happened in those days. You know, homes were few and far between. And so the Hart boys showed up, said they were Methodist preachers. That's what they told Mr. Tompkins the day before. And we stay all night. He said, well, yeah, there's another man there. So they stayed all night, and the next morning, and this had to be told by the Hart wives later. Well, it just had to be them to tell it. The next morning, Mr. Love didn't come down from the loft for breakfast. Mr. Stigall asked where he was. I said, well, he snored last night. They cut his throat. They then cut her throat, cut the baby's throat, grabbed everything they could grab, burned the house to the ground, and took off, because that's the way they were. A lot of people they would kill if they would rob them, cut their stomach open and put rocks in there and throw them in a river, because the rocks would make them sink. They wouldn't float, and you'd never find them. If you come back and go down that straight white road at 1799, well, the posse was chasing them. The Harts crossed the river. The posse camped on the Hopkins County side, what is now, and it rained that night. And John Leeper, who eventually killed Big Hart, his wooden ramrod swelled because of the rain. Rainwater got damp and he couldn't prime it in his rifle. And that made a difference the next day. Okay, Don, hope I got the right picture. Russell, this is your country. Morton's Gap. This looks like a railroad, but it's not. It's called these little marks, so you know that's Highway 70, but you might not be able to see it. That's 70, this is 62. You go out from the truck stop, Moss Hill is there before you get to the river on the right. You cross the river, still called Harp's Head, because that's where their camp was, and that's where they called them. And I've been on it several times. The last time I was over there, I got run off and told the sheriff would be called if I didn't leave. So I figured, how am I going to sneak in the back way? That happened to me before Mr. Frymire up by Boonesboro. I wanted to see the oldest Baptist church in the state. And my brother-in-law and I, Joe Clark, I don't know if you remember him or not, but he did some work for him years ago. A fella came out and told us that he would shoot us dead if we didn't leave. And I just wanted to see Daniel Boone's brother's grave or something, to see the oldest church in the state. But he wouldn't take no for an answer. And we were told later by a neighbor that we were wise to leave because he would have killed us. But at any rate, at the time that I got familiar with Harp's Hill, Russell Oates' kinfolk, you see, Russell goes back to a man named Jesse Oates, who moved to Harp's Hill a year after the Harp episode, about 1800. And I had an aunt and uncle that knew the people that lived on Harps Hill, and they told me their name, and I went to see them with my usual charm. I was able to talk to them, Kenneth Robinson, Willadine. And according to Mr. Roderick, the source, and he wrote his book in 1913, the camp was on Harps Hill. That's where the women and everybody were, and that's where they went to, and the posse chased them. Little Harp got away. Big Harp tried to get away. John Leeper finally caught up with him, but his rifle, you know, ramrod wouldn't go with him. So he borrowed James Hopkins' gun, the one that had the powder in it that Big Harp had let him have. Pursued him, got him off his horse. Big Harp lay on the ground, couldn't keep going anymore. Asked for a drink of water. They took off his shoe. Fella took it to Pond River, which was 100 yards away. Brought it back to him. Drank it. Moses Stegall came up with a butcher knife, and the accounts differ on what he said, what Harp said. But at any rate, took the knife, cut his head off. And according to legend, Harold Ledbetter said this, and where he got it, I'm not sure. That's that oral history. Put it in a sack of roasting ears. You know what roasting ears are, what we call corn in Kentucky when we're going to eat it. And he said, the old story is, when they were coming back from Rocks in the River, from Muhlenberg County, they stopped as you're going past Walmart. Before you get to where Highway 70 turns to the right, there's a little dip. You go across a little creek, a little branch. That's Bratton's Creek, and you don't see that on maps anymore. He said, according to the old story, they stopped right there in that little dip to eat supper. And Big Harp's head was in the sack with the corn, with roast in it. And one of the younger members of the posse said, man, I don't mean that corn. When the older fellow said, well, he's not going to eat it. I don't know. Okay.
I need a copy of that slide, according to what you just told here about all that stuff being local.
Yeah.
There's not a house between my house and any
Right.
of that other stuff you
Okay,
just
now
told.
this is why I told you I needed to talk to your husband.
Yeah, and crosswise, you could probably 2
Yeah,
miles. or
your
3 miles.
father-in-law told me personally, John Marion told me,
Yeah.
that it's handed down to him that from Rocks in the River, or Free Henry Ford, as you go toward your house, which would be north, right on the river,
Right.
he said there's a place in the river called Horseshoe Bend. And I figured Norris might know which one that is. He said, and after you pass Horseshoe Bend, the river straightens out. He said on the right side of that straight part is where they killed Big Harp. Now, Dr. Orrin Hudson, who's was more eat up with this stuff than I am, and he's an archaeologist. I mentioned that to him. He said, well, Carl, he said, you know, it's possible we could go over and find his finger still under the ground. Okay, one more. Okay, this is a huge rock on Harps Hill in Muhlenberg County. And I've been in it a couple of times when I had permission to go. Russell tells me we can get back. We got to work his connection.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
We can get back.
So we, Clark and I and his boys, walked back past Miss Robinson, back alongside Harps Hill. We got back there a certain way with directions from Kenneth, looked up, and there that was. We walked up to the rock, which is a climb. I don't know if I'm still doing it or not. See the guy up there? There's a hole there. We went in that hole. That's 2 men, 2 boys, and it was a tight squeeze. There's not much room in that rock. So we got to thinking, I said, Big Harp would have been a big guy. Little Harp, got 2 men, then you got 3 women. Plus at least 2 babies. I think that is not genuine oral history.